West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
The problem that you have is they go into rooms, they won't let anybody near them. They wouldn't even let them in the same building. Did they drop anything into those piles? Or did they do it later? There's no chain of custody here with them.
Special Master Judge Raymond Dearie is asking Donald Trump's lawyers to back up their claims that FBI agents planted some of the documents seized from Mar-a-Lago. Dearie also wants proof that Trump declassified the 100 or so classified documents he took by the box load to his Florida golf course. And, well,
if you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. And there doesn't have to be a process. There can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. You're the president. You make that decision. So when you send it, it's declassified.
What in the word salad with extra dressing is that? No doubt Judge Dearie will require something a bit more substantial than telepathy. He's given Trump until Friday to put up or shut up. Meanwhile, New York Attorney General Letitia James has filed a sweeping lawsuit accusing Trump, the Trump Organization, and 3 of his adult children of years of widespread fraud related to the family's business dealings, a move that could potentially cost Trump $250 million and his real estate empire. Joining me now, Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen. He is also the host of the Mea Culpa podcast and author of the forthcoming book, Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the DOJ Against His Critics. Michael, welcome back to the Sunday show.
Jonathan, that was some opening that you have there, my friend. I mean, yes. Could you imagine? First he goes after the FBI. Then he turns around and he wants to use the Jedi mind trick. Declassify we do, right? I mean, this guy is out of his mind. He's really, truly lost it.
Michael, wow, that was an incredible impression. But let's talk about the impact of a conviction and how detrimental that could be to Trump's family business. As I mentioned, not only is the New York AG looking to recover $250 million, she's also seeking to bar the Trump Organization from getting loans from any New York registered financial institution for 5 years. The question, though, Michael, to you is, do you see the Trump family trying once again to settle this case, or will this case go to trial?
Okay, first of all, they had an opportunity to settle. We don't know what the facts behind that are. However, the $250 million pursuant to the 200-page indictment by our unshakable Attorney General. That's the base that she's looking for. That is not the ceiling. So we're talking about anywhere, in my estimation, based upon the documents that I know the Attorney General has, I suspect that they're probably looking at somewhere between $750 million to $1 billion in penalties and fines. So do I think the Trump organization is in trouble? Absolutely.
Well, another thing that could be in trouble is this, and that A.J. James went after, was the brand. He's built his entire brand around being a businessman with enormous wealth. But Attorney General James dismantled that imagery one stunning example at a time, like Trump's claim that his gaudy Trump Tower apartment was worth 3 times its actual value. Michael, you were once his lawyer. Based on what we know of the Attorney General's lawsuit, how much of the iceberg has James uncovered?
No, I think she uncovered everything. She names, 200 different violations, 200 different vermins there in her indictment. This is not a joke. We've all seen this sort of scenario over and over again, which is, oh, that's it. Donald's cooked. This is it. It's all over. Rest assured, Tish James has done something now that nobody else has done. Whether it's going to be Fani Willis in Georgia or the pick in Washington or you name it. This is taxes. Numbers don't lie, people do. And Donald Trump lies. So the problem is you can't even get him, onto the stand in order to testify, because if you do, he's not going to tell the truth and you're going to catch him in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Michael, Attorney General James said flat out, quote, "The investigation started after Michael D. Cohen testified to Congress that Mr. Trump and his employees had manipulated his net worth to suit his interests." That testimony that you gave before Congress was in 2019. In addition to suing him, the AG also made criminal referrals to the IRS and the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Do you think Trump is finally on the road to being held legally accountable?
The answer is yes. The only thing that, and I'm certain that AG James and also the IRS, they need to act. And I know Tish James will do that. One of Donald Trump's favorite plays is delay, delay, delay. And he's going to look to delay everything. No different than you may also recall in her 200-page indictment. One of the things that she talks about is the documents that they ultimately recovered in the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, documents that he was required pursuant to subpoena to turn over. Now that subpoena was after the lawsuit. Trump lost. Then it became an appeal. Trump lost that, went to the Supreme Court. He lost that. Subpoena, refuses to turn it over, claims that they don't exist. And then ultimately they find them in the raid. Everything right now is going bad for Donald.
It is Monday, the 26th of September of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. And we've had an extended weekend here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Had to take a little bit of sick leave. And sorry about that. When we signed off on Wednesday, I had every intention of having a show on Thursday and, of course, Friday. But I was starting to feel bad at the beginning of last week. Bad being my knee, my left knee, where the torn ACL had happened. And I have a knee replacement tentatively scheduled sometime in the future. But I got a flare-up of either arthritis or I banged the bone on bone together. But I think it was the arthritis flaring up and getting all those little weird crystals inside the socket there. And is that what they call it? Anyway, the capsule. Yeah, the knee capsule. And it got quite swollen, and by Wednesday after the show, I started to do some post-production work, and it became increasingly uncomfortable, even just to sit. Every time I stuck my heel, there was a lot of pain. Or if I moved my foot. Yeah, it hurt bad. And so what can one do? Well, you try to stay off it, get it above your heart, and put ice on it. And that's what I did, and tried to sleep and could not get comfortable at all. But I could not even do the minimum, really, for the radio station, and I had to turn on the PV channel. But there's a lot of our programming that comes onto the PV channel that is not necessarily at the same time, but they're great friends, and we rely on them, and they help us out in other ways as well. So, sorry about that. Getting old is no fun. In fact, as I mentioned last week, in the few moments of conscious awareness, meaning I didn't really even get online very much. It was hard. There were a couple of times when I did, and I thought, wow, maybe I'm getting better. But then the waves of discomfort would pass over, and I'd have to get prone and get that knee above my heart again. But as I noted to a few friends online, that, if you're not careful, old age can kill you. We got to do something about that. And I thought I did. Oh, well. So the positive awareness of all this is that if we lived in another time, they just leave us on the side of the trail and let the bear or whatever get us. Ants. Can't move from ants. They'll just devour you in time. Usually the bear or some other, carnivore would find you and say, oh, we're just killing the herd. Yeah, we only get the old ones. So at least we don't have to worry about that. Now we just have to worry about young Nazi toughs thinking that they can take the world's rights away because all these old people are such squares. They like liberty, love, and happiness. We don't. We want to goose step on people's necks. Wow. All I know is that my son and grandkids aren't like that. What the hell happened? These people are not only crass, they're not only illiterate, they're really hostile, too. Really hostile. All right. Well, there's a lot that we could do about that, and what could we do is here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, since we have a curated show, we might as well delve right into what we're going to provide for you today. At the top, that was Michael Cohen basically saying that Jedi mind tricks don't work for declassification, and Donald Trump thinks they do. All right, he's not going to be able to Darth Vader his way out of this. He's not. On the rest of the menu, talking about Darth Vadering, Greg Abbott's otherworldly vow to eliminate all rapists to justify no exception abortion rings hollow in the real world of Texas sexual assault clinics. Staffing shortages and violence plague Oklahoma for-profit prisons, and I would say, well, what else is new? And an ex-Nevada deputy attorney general has been arrested for a 1972 homicide in Hawaii. And it looks like he might have been mobbed up back in the day, too. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Iran's foreign ministry summoned Britain's ambassador to protest what it described as a hostile atmosphere created by London-based Farsi language media outlets. Reporting on that tragic young 22-year-old woman's death at the hands of the morality police. It's the messenger's fault. And a fire broke out at the world's biggest produce market in Paris. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of the chat room link across the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and possibly send us what you might spend on, I don't know, how about an espresso-type coffee drink? If you could send those funds to us once a month, it helps us pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance against dark forces goose-stepping all over the world. Damn, I hate them. Anyway, we are a small but powerful bulwark against this steady march of, there's no other word for it, fascism. And we thank you for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty to stop this Nazi assault on democracy. There's no other way to put it, but thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Thanks, Tom. Tom takes care of that. And he and Kelly take care of a lot more than those social media type things that they do. Thank you. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and you can also find the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library over these many 11 years at the Internet Archive at archive.org. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Paul J. Weber and Jamie Stengel. When Texas's new abortion law made no exceptions in cases of rape, Republican Governor Greg Abbott defended it with an assurance: Texas would get to work eliminating rapes. All right. 1 year later, Lindsay LeBlanc is busy as ever helping rape victims in a college town outside of Houston. The numbers have stayed consistently high, said LeBlanc, executive director of the Sexual Assault Resource Center in Bryan near Texas A&M. Despite hiring 2 additional counselors in the past 6 months, she still has a wait list for victims. We are struggling to keep up with demand, she said. The constant caseloads in Texas are another example of how Republicans have struggled to defend zero-exception abortion bans that are unpopular in public polling, have caused an uproar in high-profile cases, and are inviting political risk heading into November's midterm elections. A year since the Texas law went into effect in September of 2021, at least a dozen states also have bans that make no exceptions in cases of rape or incest, and sometimes even the health of the mother. The absence of exceptions has caused divisions among Republicans, including in West Virginia, where a new law signed this month allows a brief window for rape and incest victims to obtain abortions only if they report to law enforcement first. Recently, South Carolina's Republicans scuttled the proposed ban after failing to get enough GOP support. I would also add, look how many rape kits they have from all those decades and decades and decades. Boy, they're really on it, aren't they? Yeah, they're going to help. It really disgusts me, said Republican South Carolina State Senator Katrina Shelley, ripping into her male colleagues on the floor of the state Senate. Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, also of South Carolina, allowed exceptions under the proposed national abortion ban he introduced last week. The proposal has virtually no chance of passing, with even GOP leaders not immediately backing it, reflecting how Republicans have broadly struggled to navigate the issue of abortion with voters since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade this summer. Overwhelming majorities of voters think their state should generally allow abortion in specific cases, including rape, incest, or if the health of the pregnant person is endangered. Even Republicans are seeing it as a line with some voters. Really? Some? It's a very gray issue, said Claudia Alcazar, the GOP chairwoman in Starr County along the Texas-Mexico border, that has become a new political battleground after Republicans made big gains with more conservative Hispanic voters in 2020. She said she knows there are those who are hardcore, never have abortion for any reason, period. And then I have other ones that are like, well, it depends. In Texas, the blowback was swift when Abbott said last September, Texas will work tirelessly to make sure that we eliminate all rapists from the streets. Critics called it detached from reality. A sexual assault hotline in Houston has answered almost 4,800 calls through August this year, putting it on track to exceed last year's volume of 4,843. Sean Murphy of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's River City Hash Mondays. Working as a prison guard in Oklahoma is becoming an ever more dangerous job as the state, with one of the highest incarceration rates in the United States, struggles with violence and understaffing at detention facilities. Long hours, dangerous conditions, and remote rural locations have meant fewer guards and a system plagued with increased killings and violence. 3 inmates were killed in separate incidents this year at the same private prison in rural east central Oklahoma, where a correctional officer was fatally stabbed by an inmate over the summer. Davis Correctional Facility, a 1,700-bed men's prison in Holdenville, operated by Tennessee-based private prison operator CoreCivic, has been operating at only about 70% of its contractually obligated staffing level, according to a 2021 audit of the facility provided to the AP after an open records request. Alan J. Hirschenberger, a 61-year-old veteran correctional officer from Missouri who previously worked at a CoreCivic facility in Kansas, was traveling to Oklahoma to work at the prison for 6-week stints at a time, according to his family. On July 31st, Hirschberger was supervising about 30 inmates in a recreation yard at the prison when 49-year-old inmate Gregory Thompson walked past him, pulled a 16-inch homemade knife from his waistband and plunged it into Hirschberger's back. And that was according to an affidavit from an Oklahoma Department of Corrections investigator, J. Dale Hunter. Thompson has been charged with first-degree murder in Hughes County. His public defenders declined to comment on the case. CoreCivic did not respond directly to questions about Thompson's offender-level status or its staffing ratio at the time of the killing, but acknowledged the company is taking steps to improve staffing levels. Core Civic is committed to the health and safety for our employees and individuals in our care and our communities, Core Civic spokesman Matthew Davio said in a statement. We've also committed to attracting and retaining qualified professional staff at Davis. However, both public and private correctional facilities have faced staffing challenges across the country. Well, you know how a for-profit prison makes money. They cut back on services, like every for-profit company does. Davio said the company used additional funding this year from the Oklahoma legislature to increase pay for officers at the facility, and also advertised for openings and launched recruiting efforts at military bases and local colleges. A billboard along a highway near the prison, located 75 miles southwest of Oklahoma City, advertises starting pay at $22.10 an hour. Still, another inmate was killed at the prison earlier this month, the third this year, according to the Department of Corrections. Correctional officers watched as 32-year-old Darren Padron strangled his cellmate, 27-year-old Dustin Patterson, as he pleaded for his life, according to that affidavit from the DOC investigator. Correctional officers reported they witnessed Padron attack Patterson with various strangulation techniques, including a lateral neck restraint, pushing his elbow into Patterson's throat as he lay prone, and utilizing Patterson's shirt as a ligature. Oh, well. What were they doing? Studying techniques for use in the future, maybe? The officers told DOC investigators that Padron refused to comply with verbal directives and continued to strangle Patterson, even after multiple deployments of pepper spray. Audrey McAvoy of the Associated Press brings us this final offering in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Hawaii grand jury on Friday indicted a former Deputy Nevada Attorney General on charges of second-degree murder in connection with the 50-year-old cold case of a Honolulu woman killed in 1972. Tudor Chirilla, age 77, is in custody in Reno, Nevada, where he is fighting extradition to Hawaii, saying his rights were violated when he was arrested last week. Honolulu police said new DNA evidence linked Chirilla to the crime scene at Nancy Anderson's apartment in Waikiki, where she had been stabbed more than 60 times. She had recently moved to Hawaii from Bay City, Michigan, and was working at a McDonald's restaurant. The criminal complaint filed in Honolulu said police had reopened the cold case multiple times since the 72 killing and received a tip in December that Chirilla could be a suspect. In March, police obtained a DNA sample from Chirilla's son that identified him as the biological child of a DNA sample found at the crime scene, according to the criminal complaint. Police then served a search warrant and obtained a DNA sample from Chirilla at his Reno apartment on September 6, court records said. Anderson's family said in a statement through the Honolulu's prosecutor's office, thanking law enforcement for their work on the case. Chirilla said he's fighting extradition because police forced him to provide saliva for the DNA sample in September, and he believes his constitutional rights were violated when he was arrested. Chirilla has an October 17 hearing in Reno, which was rescheduled from October 3rd. Honolulu prosecutors said a conviction on the charge of second-degree murder carries a mandatory life sentence in prison with the possibility of parole. And it turns out, in other reportage, local reportage, Chirilla was mobbed up quite a bit with main mobsters in the Nevada gaming mobster families. Indeed. Aren't they all? All right, let us now get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.